In today's video, I'm going to be comparing 4 different world-renowned ballet companies and how their principal dancers perform the role of the Rose Adage. For the Royal Ballet, we're going to look at Marianela Nuñez. For the Paris Opera, we'll look at Aurélie Dupont. For the Bolshoi, we'll look at Evgenia Obraztsova. And for the New York City Ballet, we'll look at Ashley Bouder. So what's really interesting about all these companies is that they all have quite a unique style. And the reason why I've chosen the Rose Adage is because in general, there aren't too many variations in the choreographies. Obviously there are some, but each company performs a relatively similar version of the choreography, which gives us more of a chance to compare the stylistic approach. Now, the reason why I've chosen these specific dancers, I'll explain why. So I started with Marianela Nuñez. I really wanted to look at her interpretation because I think it's quite an interesting one. But then finding dancers who are similar to her, and of course their style of technique and their approach to interpreting a role will of course be different, and it will be heavily linked to which company they're with. But then of course with any big company, not all of the principal dancers dance the same, and thank goodness for that. And I feel with Marianela, she has this real warmth. So I decided to try and find other dancers in the Paris Opera, Bolshoi and New York City Ballet who also brought a certain kind of warmth to their dancing. The reason why I chose Aurélie Dupont, I was in 2 minds about going with her just because the video I have is a bit older, and once you start comparing dancers from slightly different decades, you then also have to factor in that historically ballet has changed throughout time. So we danced a bit differently in the 90s to how we do in the 2020s. Having said that, I do feel Aurélie Dupont was the right choice. She is really known for her warmth and her acting ability. For the Bolshoi, now this was a harder one because I would say in general, Vaganova trained dancers are known for many incredible things. Warmth maybe isn't one of them, but I do think Evgenia is a good dancer to compare with Marianela and Aurélie. And then Ashley Bouder, my goodness, she exudes warmth and brilliance. So I hope you agree with me with the dancers I've chosen, and if you don't, I'd love to hear from you in the comments. Then at the end of this video, I'm going to be sharing my all-time favourite interpretation of the Rose Adage, and spoiler alert, it's actually not any of the dancers I mentioned previously. So I'm going to compare section by section. I'm going to start off with Marianela. It's important to remember that Marianela is Argentinian, so her training is not purely English, but she has been with the Royal Ballet for a very long time now, and I think she is a classic example of the English style of dance in terms of control, poise, attention to detail, and really clean, precise technique. So let's go from the partnered développé section. Now, instantly you can see how Marianela puts the emphasis on effortless movement. She has such a wonderful regal quality about her dancing, and in these développés I feel like the focus actually isn't on the height of the leg or wowing the audience with the most incredible extension, even though her leg is really high and it's a beautiful développé. She puts the focus on grace, ease, and connection with the other dancers, that beautiful natural smile she gives them. Everything she does here is so calm. There's this beautiful, noble, contained quality to it. Her technique is always incredibly clean with very precise positions. You'll notice that her arms are slightly low, and this is quite typical of the English style. So now we look at Aurélie's interpretation. With the French style of dancing, you'll instantly notice a greater sense of authority. You'll have incredibly clean, precise footwork, again, very clean positions, but they will appear slightly stronger than the English interpretation, which has this very soft, delicate quality. You'll notice in these développés that Aurélie has a moment of suspense where she holds her balance, which is incredibly impressive, and that's where the emphasis is here for Aurélie. It's showing the audience her beautiful technique, her beautiful lines, and her strength. You'll also notice that there's slightly less connection between Aurélie and the other dancers on stage, and more of a look out towards the audience. So you see this greater projection going out, rather than the more intimate feeling that we get when Marianela is on stage. Marianela really draws you in. She makes you feel like you're part of her world. Whereas you'll notice with the three other ballet companies we'll compare, they project out to the audience. Now, this is a really beautiful moment, and I think it demonstrates just what a great actor Aurélie is. You can see she's very playfully, almost coquettishly looking at her dance partner. And remember, she is playing the role of a young princess who's arrived at court for the first time and is looking for a suitor. So you can imagine this young girl probably feels very nervous, might have bursts of enthusiasm, and Aurélie really matches that with the music. There's a slight tremor in the music, but you really see that in Aurélie. You see her not being this incredibly confident étoile of the Paris Opera, but this slightly naive, nervous, excited girlishness to her. She has these wide eyes, and as she looks at her partner, like I said, it's quite playful. So this gives this sort of youthful sweetness to her character that you don't see with Marianela. Marianela appears more like a queen, and that she's incredibly calm, controlled, nothing rattles her, and those emotions stay pretty consistent throughout the entire piece. In terms of understanding the character, Aurélie's interpretation really speaks to me more than some of the others. We'll look at Ashley Bouder in a bit, because I also think she does a great job of this. But it's the nervousness and the fragility and naivety that I think Aurélie captures really well. So now we move on to Evgenia, and this is a very different interpretation. Instantly, you can see how she projects out to her audience. Her lines are immaculate. Her technique is incredibly strong. Her arms are much bigger, her épaulement much stronger. And you'll also notice that there is even less interaction with the other dancers on stage, and far more of a projection out to her audience and an emphasis on filling the stage. Now, unfortunately for Ashley Bouder, I don't actually have a clip of this exact section of the développés. If you know of one, please do let me know, but her comparison will come a little bit later. Looking at the next part, starting off with Marianela, we have these amazing balances in an attitude arabesque. I would say with Marianela, again, it's all very demure. She does 3 immaculate pirouettes, and with this lovely soft flourish at the end. So as you'll see here, every single penché is just so beautifully placed. However, the emphasis isn't necessarily on the height of the leg in the penché, but rather the incredible articulation of the foot. She rolls through the shoe into her penché. And then you'll notice here that the choreographic choice is quite understated. She just has one partner lifting her for the shoulder sit. The corps de ballet do frame her, but they are more of a distance compared to the other companies. But I would like to take a moment to appreciate the corps de ballet holding those arabesques for an incredibly long time, and just look at their turnout, absolutely perfect. No one even flinches. So incredible work from the corps de ballet there. So now with Aurélie, you'll notice that there is less of a connection and that sweet smile that Marianela gives her partners, but you have that greater sense of French authority. There's a certain strength that comes from this. Her big arms for her preparation before her turns, very sharp, clean turns, and then a much bigger gesture, a stronger gesture with her arms projecting to her public. So the penché section for Aurélie is similar to the English version in terms of the beautiful footwork, articulation of the feet as she rolls through the shoe, very well placed arm positions. But with Aurélie, again, there's that playful, almost cheeky expression that I think is perfect for the role of Aurora. Aurélie's movements are very feminine and delicate. She really stretches out each position so it blends into the next. Whereas with Marianela, first of all, you'll notice this section is a lot faster, but also her movements are cleaner, more precise, and in general, there's less emotion here. For Aurélie, the lift section is more of a showstopper. You have more partners involved. She does a fouette arabesque into her lift. You have bigger arms, more épaulement. I think this might be perhaps the choreography is by Rudolf Nureyev, being a Soviet dancer, so you do see some of those Vaganova influences in his choreography. Next, looking at Evgenia, the length of her leg in the attitude position is much longer, and her arm position is further backwards than Aurélie's, and both are very typical of Vaganova. You see that longer attitude line and you see much broader, more open arm positions. Then there's the added penché at the end. Again, the Russian style loves to add those beautiful extensions because they do them so well. Next, if we look at the hand placement during the preparation of a pirouette, you'll notice that Evgenia and Ashley have their palms facing down, whereas Aurélie and Marianela have their palms facing in. What did surprise me, however, with Evgenia's pirouettes from Fourth on Dehors is that I was expecting her to keep her back leg straight before pushing off from a plie, whereas I noticed she goes straight into that plie before her pirouette. And if you know why that might be, I would love to hear from you. Evgenia has much bigger, more expressive arm movements. Her piqué arabesques are much more about the line and height of the leg, so we're going for a much more exaggerated extension here, really reaching through the fingertips. If you compare this with Marianela, it's much calmer, it's much more contained. Keep in mind the stage at the Bolshoi is huge, so this is very much a woman on a mission to fill this large space. For her penché section, she does this on points, which is really difficult and requires a huge amount of ankle strength. I then love that she does this little beat with her working leg to pass through. I think it's really pretty, it's very feminine, and works really well with the role of Aurora. Then when we move into the lift, of course the Bolshoi literally translates as big. They were going to go big. We have the whole corps de ballet getting involved. We even have garlands. There is almost like the opening of a flower and she's right at the centre. It's big, bold and beautiful. And now look at these arms. Could you get more Vaganova? I don't think so. Gorgeous épaulement, very wide open positions of the arms. Both Aurélie and Evgenia have a chaîné section, and I noticed that Evgenia does her chaînés in first position, whereas Aurélie does them in fifth. I just want to quickly focus in on the corps de ballet at the Paris Opera and just appreciate their penché on point whilst playing their lyre and holding this position for a very, very long time. That requires huge strength. Can't imagine how uncomfortable that was to hold. So next, looking at this développé à la seconde section, we get to look at Ashley Bouder now, and we have 4 very different versions. Looking at Marianela, I just love how the emphasis is not on the extension, but it's the descent and the control and the in-between moments before the next développé. It is just so gorgeous. She slows down, but she doesn't miss the music. She's not late. She's still bang on time for the next développé. Looking at Aurélie is very different. It is stronger, it's sharper, the positions are cleaner, she holds them for longer. And there's this real strength that comes through with her technique and her artistry. We don't see this shy, slightly nervous princess anymore. We see a much more confident character. And I think this is reflected in the music. With Evgenia, we have gorgeous extensions. The emphasis is on throwing the leg, going into then some beautiful pirouettes. And there's a real projection going out to the audience, which again aligns with the crescendo of the music. So next we look at Ashley Bouder. Let me just spend a few moments talking about her and New York City Ballet style. So obviously when we think New York City Ballet, we think of Balanchine. Balanchine combined Vaganova style with a Broadway style. So we almost have quite jazzy elements. We see dancers moving their hips more, pulling off balance. We see them playing with the music a bit more. And you don't have this like regal old European quality that you do with like Royal Ballet or Paris Opera, but instead you see it's fun, it's bubbly, and it has really high energy. So this particular choreography is actually by Peter Martens, who is Danish but has a lot of like Balanchine history behind him. He worked with New York City Ballet for a number of years. So I chose Ashley because of her just huge warmth, and she has such like a bubbly way of dancing, huge expressions, incredibly animated, this grin that lasts throughout the piece even though she must be exhausted. Every single step just is bursting with energy and sparkle. It's very Broadway. You see her coming off balance, falling off balance quite a lot, that you just don't see in the hyper classical companies. So with this section, it just has huge pizzazz, throwing the leg, throwing herself into a pirouette, huge grin. Every movement she is massively projecting out to her audience. Even after a pirouette, she has this extra flourish, this shake of the shoulders. It's all about communicating with her audience. We see very little communication with the other dancers on stage. It's about being big, bright, eye-catching, dramatic, and fun. And I have to say, even though at my core I do really love the older hyper-classical style of ballet, for this particular role, I think the way she approaches it, her interpretation, is very believable, of a young princess finding herself at court, looking for a suitor. She's bursting with excitement and joy, and there's a real sweetness about that. In terms of technique, you'll notice the arms go much higher. Let's compare Ashley with Marianela. Marianela has very low English style arms. Ashley throws them up in her glissade. You'll notice that the dynamics are much sharper. She plays with the music, and then we have these beautiful off-balance moments where it does become a bit stretchy and gooey, but again, not in a classical way like Marianela, but in more of a jazzy way. And finally, I want to look at the promenade section. With Marianela, I love that she gives this really warm, very genuine and natural smile to each of her partners. With Aurélie, she has this incredible balance in arabesque after all of her promenades. I can't even imagine how you do that with your legs feeling like jelly at that point. With Evgenia, you'll notice that her leg is slightly higher, her arms are broader. We have this broader shape of the arms, again very typical of Vaganova. And of course, you probably guessed it, we have another extension thrown into the choreography. We have a penché after all of those promenades. With Ashley, what I really love is that the emphasis is not on the height of the leg, it's not on, the like regal quality that you get with Paris Opera. I love that after every single promenade, she looks out to her audience as if to say, oh, did you see me? How cool was that? Look mum, no hands. It's almost like she's so pleased with herself for doing something incredibly difficult, and she really wants to share that with her audience. And again, just perfect for the role of a young princess who's just excited to be there. So now to reveal who my all-time favourite Aurora is, and that would be Alina Kojikaru. So what I love particularly about Alina is that she's Romanian, so her training has strong Vaganova influences, but she spent a long time working at the Royal Ballet and then at the English National Ballet, where I actually had the privilege of dancing alongside her for a bit, which was really special. And I think this blend of Vaganova and English technique creates the most beautiful blend. She has absolutely exquisite extensions, but her footwork and her technique is very precise. Her port de bras is very soft yet expressive. She pays huge attention to the details and the subtlety, but at the same time, despite being relatively small lady, she can really fill a stage, and her performance is truly captivating. And the reason why I feel she plays the role of Aurora the best out of what I've seen is because naturally she is such a sweet, friendly, kind person, and that really shines through when she's dancing. Now, it's strange to say that there is a slight fragility about her when she dances. Despite being an incredibly strong dancer, she lets herself be vulnerable, and I think in the role of Aurora she's very believable, that she's young and innocent and naive, a little bit nervous but also excited, and she has a very traditional kind of femininity about her. So she works very well in roles where she's like a princess or a fairy or like a nymph. Love to know in the comments if Alina is also your favourite, or if you're particularly taken by someone else. So those are my thoughts on the 4 different styles of ballet among these different companies, all incredibly beautiful dancers but in very different ways. If you'd like me to do another comparison of either another role or perhaps just comparing certain dancers within the same company, let me know in the comments. If you don't already, please like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.